Going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. A few months ago I showed you guys a video on DEF pump problem on my Ram truck here and how it was getting clogged up, and how we took that nozzle out and cleaned the corrosion out of it. Well, it got me by for about 2.5 months now, and the DEF pump finally quit working and will not pump any fluid at all. So I've gone through it, tested everything, and it just won't pump at all any point in time. So I had to just go ahead and gonna have to replace it. So I'm going to show you guys how to replace it. I did it myself. It wasn't very hard. It just made quite a bit of mess. So before we get into the video, if we would, please subscribe to the channel and we'll get started. So anyway, some of the check engine light codes that I was getting on my Edge CTS screen compared to last time. The first time I was getting a P20E9, and that stood for reductant pressure low, and I'm guessing the pump was not pumping the adequate amount of fluid that it was supposed to, and it was kind of corroded up at that injector and kind of stopped up there, so it wasn't pumping like it was supposed to. So once I got that cleaned out, it had started pumping more fluid and it wasn't setting the code anymore, and that got me by for about, like I was saying, 2.5 months or so. But here the other day I got a new set of codes, completely different than that one, and it was the P2BAC, which means the EGR system on this truck has disabled due to a DEF failure or another emissions failure. And the other code I was getting was P20E9, and that stands for reductant pressure too high. So my guess is the pump was building the pressure and it just wasn't sending the fluid out through the line or something like that. I don't really know how it works, but I was getting those two codes, and when I disconnected the line, the pump wasn't pumping any fluid, and I went through all the steps in the Mopar service manual for this truck, and I determined that the DEF fluid pump needed replaced. So with that being said, I had to order a new pump, like I was saying, and install it in the truck. So for the purpose of this video, I've actually already changed this, and the reason I didn't video it is because this DEF fluid, my tank was almost all the way full and it was going to make a big mess, and I didn't want to take the chance of getting any DEF fluid on my camera or electronics because it's very corrosive to electronics, and I didn't want to take the chance of damaging it. But I'm going to still show you guys how to do it. It's very simple. So here's the old pump, and here's when it was manufactured. So this was the original pump out of the truck. Got 180,000 miles on it. So it lasted for quite a while. And this is basically what it looks like. I'm not sure what these little rubber things are or what they do, but they kind of just sit in the fluid and float. I don't know if that's some sort of gauge to tell the fluid level or not, or what. But anyway, maybe somebody can comment and tell what these are. But anyway, you can just see how corrosive that stuff is. When it gets air contacted outside, it starts getting corrosive and nasty. So when you order one of these, you want to make sure you get a new ring with it, and it's basically just going to set up in the bottom of the DEF fluid tank like so, and will come capped. This piece will come capped, so I just leave this on here, and there's a little metal piece, little stainless steel piece, and make sure that your new pump has that. And for some reason, if it don't, you'll need to take it out of your old pump and make sure it's cleaned out before you put it on with the hose. So I would suggest a pretty good sized bucket. So this is the bucket I use. It's an old mineral lip tub. So we're just going to slide that under there. Get yourself a creeper. So if you're looking underneath the truck, the DEF tank is right at the B post on the door, kind of right between the back seat and the front seat. And you'll need to get yourself a ratchet with a 1/2 inch, and you'll just loosen these right here. You'll probably have to loosen these up here if you got this transmission or transfer skid plate on your truck. So anyway, you can go ahead and take that screw out, but I'm just going to leave mine like this. So here's the DEF fluid pump, and here's the line coming in. I don't want to get a mouthful of fluid, so basically all you do is squeeze this clip together, push in on this, and then squeeze this little plastic piece, and you can pop this line off. And then you'll need to get a little pick and stick right in one of those little grooves, that middle one right there, and you can see, you can kind of pull this back, you can see where it clips in right there. Just be very careful not to break it. Just take your time, get a little pick, and you unplug this right here. Now I will tell you, do not let DEF fluid get on this. Take your time, take a Ziploc bag, put over it, electrical tape this up, and make sure there's no way that DEF fluid gets on it, because if it gets on there and gets in these connectors, you're going to have to replace this electronic cable here that goes up to the top of the tank. So this whole space up in here where this comes out, the DEF fluid's going to go everywhere. This is the lock ring right here that you'll need to remove. So I'm going to show you the tool for that here in just a second. So these are the tools you'll need. Get yourself a big ratchet with the long handle, because it's going to be pretty tight. Some PB blaster, and then this fuel tank lock ring removal tool. And I'll leave a link in the description below the video, and you guys can go on Amazon under my account and order this. And if you would, order it through my affiliate link, because I get a small percentage of it and it helps out the channel. I think this is like 20 or 30 bucks. So you'll want to take this, and you can see those little grooves there, and you can see how that fits in there. See if I can. So I'm going to put it in one spot where it'll fit. Okay. So it goes on the outside of the ring here, as you can see, and they click in. You can see when it turns, it locks it in there. So once you get that positioned in there good, I take PB blaster and I sprayed all these little hooks where it catches, because it was kind of dirty. You might want to take a water hose or something first, kind of wash all the gravel or whatnot if you got all that in there. But after you get this removed and this removed, like we talked about earlier, put your lock ring tool on there. Then you lefty loosey righty tighty, just pop this ring off, turn it to the left with your ratchet or your breakover bar. And I will tell you, it was on there pretty good. I really had to give it a good tug on it. I kind of bent my ring up a little bit, but I laid it flat on the ground and hammered it out flat with the hammer again. But it's really takes quite a bit to get it to unlock. So if you just spray it, I sprayed the first time I tried to do it, I didn't use any PB blaster, but I put some on there and let it set for just a second, and it made it a little bit easier. But the DEF fluid tank will try to like turn in the bracket up here, so you may think you're gonna like break the tank off or something, but it'll come out eventually. And as soon as you get that popped off, you just take this ring off and kind of jiggle this pump and the seal, will break loose, and then you'll want to scoot your bucket under here, because DEF fluid's gonna come pouring out. So anyway, that's how you get it out. It's pretty simple. Sorry I couldn't show you the process of moving it, but I just didn't want to get it all over my camera, and there wasn't really a good angle to get to it to show you guys removing it down here, because I don't have a vehicle lift. But anyway, once you get it out, you will take this seal, and it kind of just sits on here like this, and one of these ends on this pump is has a kick out on it right here, and it can only go in one spot, so it's not like you're worried about not getting it where it needs to be. This will have a spot under it where it just sits up in there, and it'll set just like the old one did. And you just have to make sure that when you're putting this in here, to keep these all folded up, like, just keep these folded in. I kind of just like tucked them in a little bit, so once they got up in there, they'd go back out like they were supposed to. I had to kind of fight with them a little bit, getting them up in there to keep them from coming out, but I kind of just basically tucked them in like so. Kind of see how I'm doing it. Kind of tucked them in like that and carefully put it in up there. So once you get the pump set up there, you can kind of hold it with one hand, and then you'll get this positioned where it's supposed to go. And I'd just leave this on there the whole time, that way you don't take a chance in losing that stainless steel piece. So once you get your pump up in the tank, then the lock ring will go on, and you basically just reverse process it. You put that tool back on there, and then you just turn the lock ring to the right, and then it'll lock back in. And you'll know it's locked in. I took a little bit of grease and put on my back side of my lock ring just so it would spin a little bit easier. If you see these two indentions here, this is humped up here in the middle, and this is raised right here, so it'll slide under that, and it'll lock right there in the middle. On each one of those, you can see kind of where it goes as far as making sure it's locked into place. And here's that tab on the pump that kicks out a little bit on this side. It goes basically right here, so your connector and hose kind of face that way towards the outside of the truck. So just be real careful when you're putting this in with these connectors. Once you get the pump and everything back in, I went ahead and replaced my DEF fluid line, put a new line in. I found one for like $150 on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below to that as well. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You just pull the old one out, and this one routes back around here through the exhaust, or underneath the exhaust, and over to the other side, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But once you get your pump in, take your connector out of your wrapper and everything that you wrapped it up in, and that just simply pushes back in. Then you make sure you lock it, and that's pretty much a done deal. Once you get that done, put your DEF fluid supply line back on, and then you're ready to fill it up with fluid. Now we'll go over to the other side and talk about this. So I put this on in my old injector. It was still good. I ran it for a little bit with the old injector, but I happened to find one on eBay for like 60 bucks. Somebody was selling it, so I was like, well, I'll buy one for that price, just so I don't have anything to worry about. But it took a lot longer to come in So I ran the new DEF pump and DEF fluid line on the old injector, and it worked just fine, no codes, no issues. But when it came in, I went ahead and replaced it. So here's the little clip I was telling you about. So you basically just squeeze this and you can work it off there. And so it's already getting a little corroded. You just pull it off just like that. And there's a locking tab up here. You can remove the electronic part. And 2 10mm bolts. And if you're replacing this, make sure you get a new gasket. If your injector doesn't come with one, you can order one at Gino's Garage, is where I got my gasket. Just clean up the surface, and the gasket has 3M sticky tape, and it sticks on the injector side. And you just set it up here. I put some aluminum anti-seize on these bolts, tighten them down until they were pretty good, hand tight. And you can plug this in and put your line on, and it just clicks on just like that. And there's my new DEF fluid line, routed up through there, comes down right here, and then goes across and comes out under this pump. So anyway, hopefully if you guys were interested in doing this yourself, this kind of showed you guys kind of how to do it. Sorry again, I couldn't show actually taking it out. So once you double check everything, make sure you plugged your electronics in, you got your DEF supply line hooked in, you can go ahead and put this plate back on, tighten these 2 bolts, don't forget to tighten these. But anyway, once you get all that up, come back here, open your DEF fluid tank, fill it up. I put 2.5 gallons in mine, and went from there before I put any more in it to make sure everything was going to work right. So if you have the service manual for this truck, it'll kind of go over that same process I just did with you, and it will basically go through all the steps I just talked about. But down at the end, it says whenever you fill this back up with DEF fluid that you have to have a scan tool to prime the pump. Well, I was kind of worried about that because I don't have one to run this pump primer, and it says you got to do it 2 times. And I've talked to a couple dealers, and they said, yeah, you got to have a scan tool to do it. I talked to one, and they said no, it should prime itself. And I talked to a couple other guys that said no, it should prime itself. So I was like, well, will it hurt to drive the truck if it's not pumping? They said no, it'll just have the code still, and you'll just have to drive it in and have a scan tool to do it. So I was like, well, I'll try it and see if it'll prime itself. So I did, and it actually does prime itself. You don't have to have a scanning tool to do it. After about, I'd say I filled it up, drove to town, came back, went to O'Reilly's, checked for codes, still had a few codes, and came back home, turned the truck off. The codes actually cleared themselves, and the pump primed itself and started working. So I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 key on off drive cycles, or is what they call it, and it actually started pumping itself. So you can do this without a scan tool. So anyway, guys, hopefully this video kind of helps you out if you're thinking about replacing it. If you take it to the dealer, they're going to charge you a lot of money to do it. They, like I said in that other video I did, they wanted like $3,000 to change it. And the pump, if you buy the pump from factory, it's like $1,900, and I think that injector's like $250, and that line's another 100, or I think the line from the dealer is like actually $200. So you can, I actually found my DEF fluid pump on eBay for a whole lot less, and it was still the factory Mopar part pump. But I was able to find one for about half the price of what they wanted for it, and 2-day shipping, so I bought it, and it worked. So anyway, like I was saying, if this video helped you out, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And also, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And appreciate you guys watching the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.